After I refused to give my mom my inheritance, she declared, "You're being selfish. That money should support the family who actually raised you," she said. She invited me to a family meeting with lawyers, ready to force me to sign it over. "Finally, time to teach you some respect," she said, handing me the papers. But when they did, I smiled. "Funny, I brought someone too." Hey, read it. This is a long one, but I promise it's worth it. I've been lurking here for years and finally have a story crazy enough to share. This happened over the past year, and I'm still processing it all. Names changed for obvious reasons, but everything else is 100% true. Some of you might think this is fake because it sounds like a movie. But I have all the documentation to prove it. My lawyer says I can share the story as long as I don't include real names or specific locations. Fair warning, this gets pretty intense. We're talking family destruction, legal battles, and the most satisfying revenge I've ever witnessed. Grab some popcorn. Before I get into the crazy stuff, you need to understand my family situation. It's important context for everything that follows. I, 28, male, work as a diesel mechanic at a trucking company here in the Midwest, named Alex. Been there about 6 years now. Make decent money fixing big rigs and heavy equipment. It's honest work. I get dirty, I solve problems, I go home tired but satisfied. I live in a small apartment with my dog Max. Drive a beat-up 2015 Silverado that I maintain myself and live pretty simply. My family situation has always been complicated. My real dad, James, died in a construction accident when I was 8, so I barely remember him. When I was 12, my mom, Linda, remarried this guy, Mark, who sells insurance. That's when things got weird. Linda hasn't worked a real job since she married Mark, about 15 years now. She plays the perfect housewife role while spending Mark's money on MLM schemes. She's been through at least 8 different ones. Expensive home decor and maintaining their image. They live in this huge McMansion in the fancy part of town that's way beyond what Mark actually makes. But appearances matter more than financial sense to Linda. My half-sister, Emily, is 22 and makes Linda look humble by comparison. She goes to an expensive private college studying communications, which seems to mostly involve partying and posting Instagram stories from Starbucks every single day. Mark pays for everything: tuition, apartment, BMW, credit cards, the works. Emily has never worked a day in her life and acts like money just magically appears. The contrast between how Emily and I were treated growing up was night and day. She got the big bedroom with her own bathroom. I got the basement. She got a car for her 16th birthday. I got a lecture about responsibility and had to buy my own. When I graduated high school, Linda told me it was time to learn independence and basically kicked me out. Emily, she's 22, and they're still paying for everything. Then there's my dad's side of the family, specifically my grandfather, Henry. This is where the story really begins. Henry Thompson was 84 when this all started. A crusty old construction worker who'd lived in the same small house for over 40 years. He was the opposite of everything Linda valued: practical, frugal, no nonsense, and completely unimpressed by status symbols. He drove a 20-year-old Ford pickup, wore the same work boots for a decade, and hadn't updated his house since the 1980s. Linda absolutely hated Henry, and I mean hated him. She called him cheap, mean, old-fashioned, and stubborn. Said he was stuck in the past and never helped when we needed it. But what she really meant was he never helped when she wanted money for her nonsense. I remember one Christmas when I was about 10. Linda had spent a fortune decorating the house. We're talking professional-level Christmas display with lights, lawn decorations, the works. Then she asked Henry for money to help with Christmas presents because they'd overspent on making the house look nice for family. Henry looked around at all the expensive decorations and said, "Looks like you already got your priorities figured out." Linda was livid for months. Growing up, I'd see Henry maybe twice a year, usually Christmas, and maybe once in the summer. He wasn't the warm cookie-baking grandpa type. No hugs, no "how's school, champ," no warm stories about the old days. But he'd always ask specific questions about what I was working on in shop class. Or if I was learning to fix things or what I planned to do after high school. When I started working on cars in high school, Henry actually seemed interested. He'd ask about what I was learning, what tools I needed, how the engines worked. When I graduated, he gave me a toolbox full of his old construction tools. Linda rolled her eyes and said, "Great, more junk for your apartment." But Henry wasn't just giving me junk. Those tools were quality old Craftsman and Snap-on stuff that lasted decades. Some of them I still use today. The last few years before he died, I'd try to visit Henry every few months. Just stop by, see how he was doing, help with small repairs around his house. Linda always made excuses for why she couldn't come. He makes me uncomfortable, he's so negative, he doesn't approve of our lifestyle. Translation: he didn't kiss her but or hand out money. When Henry died at 84, heart attack in his garage while working on an old Chevy, which honestly seems like how he would have wanted to go. The family's reaction was telling. Linda posted one of those generic Facebook statuses. So sad to lose a family member today, Henry Thompson was taken from us too soon. Please keep our family in your thoughts and prayers. Complete with a stock photo of clouds and angels, super generic, no personal memories, nothing real. Emily didn't even acknowledge it happened, too busy posting pictures of her latte art. Mark mumbled, "Sorry for your loss," at dinner and immediately changed the subject to some insurance conference he was attending. The funeral was small, maybe 20 people, mostly old construction workers and neighbors. I was literally the only family member who showed up. When people asked where the rest of the family was, I had to make excuses. My mom has a migraine, my sister had something important at school. I felt ashamed. Here was this man who'd worked hard his whole life, and his own family couldn't be bothered to show up for his funeral. But I was there, I helped carry his casket, I stayed for the whole service. I even said a few words about how he taught me the value of hard work and taking care of your tools. After the service, a few of Henry's old construction buddies came up to me. One of them, an old guy named Frank, said something that stuck with me. "Your grandpa talked about you, said you were the only one in the family who understood what work meant." I thought that was the end of Henry's story. Old man dies, family moves on, life continues. I had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was having a perfectly normal Tuesday. I'd spent the morning rebuilding the transmission on a Peterbilt and was just finishing up when my phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code, which I usually ignore because it's probably some scammer trying to sell me an extended warranty. But something made me answer. "Is this Alex Thompson?" "Yeah, who's this?" "This is Stephen Lee from Lee & Associates, I was your grandfather, Henry Thompson's attorney. I need to discuss his will with you, are you available to come to my office this week?" I almost laughed. Attorney? Henry had an attorney? The man lived like he was one step above broke. He bought generic groceries, wore clothes until they fell apart, and drove that ancient Ford until the wheels fell off. "Are you sure you have the right person?" I asked. "Very sure. Henry Thompson was your paternal grandfather, correct? You're James Thompson's son." "Yeah, that's right." "Then I definitely need to speak with you. How's Thursday afternoon around 4 p.m.? I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. Maybe Henry had left me some tools or his old truck. I couldn't imagine what else there would be. Thursday afternoon, I drove to Lee & Associates, which turned out to be in one of the nicest office buildings downtown. Way nicer than I expected for someone representing my frugal grandfather. I was still in my work clothes, dirty coveralls with my name patch, because I'd come straight from the shop. The receptionist looked me up and down when I said I was there to see Mr. Lee about Henry Thompson's will. I could tell she was thinking, this guy doesn't look like he belongs here. Mr. Lee was the opposite of what I expected, sharp Asian guy, probably mid-40s, expensive suit, corner office with a view. He looked like he charged $500 an hour, which made me even more confused about why Henry would need his services. "Alex, please sit down," he said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his massive desk. "First, let me say I'm sorry for your loss, your grandfather was a remarkable man." "Thanks, I have to ask though, how did Henry afford a lawyer like you? No offense, but this place doesn't exactly scream construction worker budget." Mr. Lee smiled. "Your grandfather was a client for over 20 years. He was very careful about legal matters, especially estate planning, which brings me to why you're here." He opened a thick folder on his desk. "Henry has named you as the sole beneficiary of his entire estate." I stared at him. "What estate?" "He lived in that little house and drove a truck older than my sister." Mr. Lee's expression didn't change. He slid a document across the desk. "Let me read you the inventory. Residential property at 447 Maple Street, fair market value $280,000, owned free and clear." Okay, that made sense. The house was small but in a decent neighborhood. Savings and checking accounts totaling $190,000. Wait, what? Henry had almost 200 grand in the bank? Investment portfolio managed by Schwab, current value $380,000. My jaw dropped. Henry had a stock portfolio? Life insurance policy with Northwestern Mutual, payout $150,000. This had to be a mistake. Various tools, vehicles, and personal property, estimated value $35,000. Mr. Lee looked up from the document, total estate value approximately $1,350,000. I sat there staring at him like he just told me I was adopted. Over $1 million? Henry, the guy who clipped coupons and bought store-brand everything? This has to be wrong, I said finally. I assure you it's not. Your grandfather was extremely frugal and invested wisely for over 40 years. He lived on a small portion of his construction income and invested the rest. He also inherited some money from his parents and invested that as well. Mr. Lee pulled out another document. He was also very specific about the distribution. Everything goes to you, Alex Thompson, not your mother, not your sister, not your stepfather, just you. I felt dizzy, but why me? I mean, I only saw him a few times a year. He left you a letter explaining his reasoning. You can read it later if you'd like. But the important thing right now is understanding the process. There are some legal steps we need to complete, paperwork to file, accounts to transfer. For the next hour, Mr. Lee walked me through everything: probate process, tax implications, investment options. My brain was struggling to keep up. One more thing, he said as we finished, your grandfather was very concerned that other family members might complicate this process. He left specific instructions about handling any challenges to the will. What kind of challenges? People sometimes claim the deceased wasn't mentally competent or that someone manipulated them into changing their will. Your grandfather was very thorough in protecting against such claims. I drove home in a complete daze. Over $1 million, I kept saying it out loud to make sure it was real. Over $1 million. I sat in my apartment that evening with Max, just staring at the paperwork Mr. Lee had given me. My dog seemed to sense something was different. He kept looking at me with his head tilted like he was confused. I should have kept this to myself, should have taken time to process it, maybe talked to a financial advisor, figured out my next steps. Instead, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I called my mom. I should have known better, I really should have, but I was excited and confused and needed to tell someone. Linda was the obvious choice since she was technically family and had known Henry longer than anyone. Big mistake, huge mistake. Mom, you're not going to believe this, I just came from Henry's lawyer's office. Henry had a lawyer? Linda's voice was surprised. Yeah, apparently he had a will and he left me some money. Oh, that's nice, honey. How much are we talking, a few thousand? I took a deep breath, like a lot more than that, over $1 million. Complete silence for like 30 seconds, I actually checked to see if the call had dropped. What do you mean over $1 million? I mean over $1 million, Mom, the house, savings, investments, insurance, it all adds up to about $1,350,000. Another long silence, then her voice got this weird tone, higher-pitched, artificially sweet, like she was talking to a small child. Well, that's absolutely wonderful, honey, I'm so happy for you. You must be shocked, I'm shocked, we should celebrate. Why don't you come over for dinner Sunday? We can talk about this amazing news. Talk about it, what was there to talk about? But she seemed genuinely excited for me, so I agreed. Sunday dinner was weird from the moment I walked in. Linda had made my favorite meal, except it wasn't actually my favorite, it was Emily's. She'd set the dining room table with the good china like this was some special occasion. Mark was being unusually friendly, asking lots of questions about my job, complimenting my truck, acting like we were best buddies. He'd never shown that much interest in my life before. Emily was actually paying attention to me instead of being glued to her phone. She asked about the will, the lawyer, how the whole process worked. She seemed fascinated by all the details. After dinner, Linda made coffee, and we moved to their fancy living room, the one they usually only used when company came over. So, Alex, Linda said, settling into her chair with her coffee, I've been thinking about Henry's will ever since you told me. It's just so surprising. Why surprising? Linda exchanged a look with Mark. Well, honey, Henry never really showed much interest in you growing up. I mean, he saw you twice a year, and he certainly never helped us when we really needed it. She was referring to a few years ago when Mark lost his job for missing too much work. They'd asked Henry for help with their mortgage payments, and he'd told them to sell Emily's BMW and downsize instead of living beyond their means. Maybe he felt bad about not being more involved, I suggested. Linda's smile got a little tighter, maybe. But honey, I think we need to be practical here, this money could really help the whole family get ahead. And there it was. I mean, she continued, Emily's tuition is so expensive, and we've been wanting to renovate the kitchen for years. Mark's business has been slow, and we have so many expenses. Mark nodded along enthusiastically. Your mother's right, Alex, family should stick together. We could set up some kind of fund, divide things fairly among everyone. Divide what? I asked carefully. The inheritance, obviously, Linda said like I was being slow. I mean, it's not like you really need all that money, you have a good job, you're single, no kids, no major expenses. But we have real responsibilities, real bills to pay. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. It's my inheritance, Mom. Linda's mask slipped for just a second, her smile faltered, and her eyes got hard. Then she caught herself and put the sweet voice back on. Don't be selfish, Alex. Henry might have put your name on the paperwork, but that money represents decades of him ignoring his family obligations. The least you could do is share it with the people who actually took care of you growing up. Took care of me. This woman had kicked me out at 18 and told me to figure out my own life. Besides, Emily chimed in, it's not really fair that one person gets everything just because some old man was being stubborn. Some old man? She was talking about our grandfather like he was a stranger. I think I should go, I said, standing up. Alex, wait, Linda said, her voice getting sharper, let's be reasonable here. You can't seriously think Henry meant for you to keep all that money to yourself. He was old, probably confused about what he was doing. I was already heading for the door. I'll talk to you later, Mom. Alex, Linda called after me, think about what's right here, think about family. I drove home with my hands shaking, not from fear, from anger. I'd been stupid to think they'd be happy for me. Of course they wanted the money. Of course they thought they deserved it more than I did, but I had no idea how far they were willing to go to get it. The next few days were like watching a coordinated attack unfold in slow motion. It started with Emily texting me at 7 a.m. the morning after our dinner. Hey, big bro, been thinking about our convo last night, so crazy about Grandpa's money, right? Anyway, I'm having some trouble with tuition this semester and was wondering if you could help out. Just like $5,000 to get me through, family helping family. $5,000, just like that, like it was pocket change. I didn't respond, so she followed up an hour later, Alex, did you see my text? It's kind of urgent. Then, my Uncle David called, Linda's brother, who I maybe talk to once a year at family gatherings. Alex, your mom told me the amazing news about Henry's inheritance. Good for you, buddy. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but my contracting business has been really struggling since the pandemic. I could really use a partner with some capital to help me expand. We could be partners, split the profits 50-50ths. A partner, he wanted to be partners with my inheritance money. Then random cousins started coming out of the woodwork. Linda's sister called asking if I could help with her medical bills. Mark's brother wanted money for his kids' baseball team. Even people I barely knew were suddenly reaching out. But the worst was Linda herself. She started calling multiple times a day. When I stopped answering, she'd text long, guilt-laden messages about family obligations and doing the right thing. When I stopped reading the texts, she escalated. I was under the hood of a Kenworth on Thursday afternoon when my supervisor, Tom, came over looking annoyed. Alex, there's some woman here claiming to be your mother. She says there's a family emergency and she needs to talk to you immediately. I crawled out from under the truck, covered in grease, to find Linda standing in the middle of our service bay. She was wearing white pants and high heels, completely inappropriate for a truck shop, and talking loud enough that every mechanic in the place could hear her. Alex Thompson, we need to talk right now. This is about your grandfather's will, and you're being completely unreasonable. Every guy in the shop was staring. My face was burning with embarrassment. Ma'am, this is a workplace, I said quietly. You can't just show up here. And don't you ma'am me, I'm your mother, and you're making a huge mistake with this money. Henry was probably senile when he wrote that will. Any reasonable person would share this with their family. My supervisor stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disrupting our workplace. I'm not leaving until my son stops being selfish and starts thinking about his family. That's when security showed up, two guys who escorted Linda out while she shouted back at me. This isn't over, Alex, that money belongs to this family, you'll regret being so greedy. Half the shop heard it. I was mortified. My coworkers kept giving me looks for the rest of the day. That night, Linda started her social media campaign. First, it was a Facebook post with a black and white photo of Henry, probably the only picture she had of him. So heartbroken thinking about family today, some people only care about money instead of the relationships that matter. Praying for wisdom and healing, family first, more agreed, no heartbroken, the comments started immediately. Linda's church friends and mom group buddies expressing sympathy and outrage. So sorry you're going through this, money changes people, some folks forget where they came from. Emily joined in on Instagram with a series of stories, pictures of her college bills with captions like, wish some people cared about family education. Money changes people, I guess we're disappointed, not your family. She also posted a picture of Henry with the caption, miss you grandpa, wish you could see what your money is doing to our family. The manipulation was so obvious it made me sick. Then Linda started the group text campaign. She created a family group chat with me, Emily, Mark, Uncle David, and a bunch of cousins. Just want to remind everyone that this isn't about greed or jealousy. It's about family unity and doing what's right. Some people seem to have forgotten the values Henry tried to teach us about sharing and caring for each other. I hope certain people remember who raised them and who will be there when the money runs out. Certain people, real subtle, Mom, the responses were predictable. Uncle David, so true, Linda, family should come first. Emily, I just don't understand how someone can be so selfish. Random cousins I barely knew, thinking of you, Linda, this must be so hard. I wanted to respond, wanted to defend myself, point out the hypocrisy, remind them all that none of them had bothered to show up for Henry's funeral. But I knew that's exactly what they wanted, a reaction that would make me look defensive or unstable. Instead, I did something smarter. I screenshot everything and started a documentation folder on my phone. Because something told me I was going to need evidence of this harassment. 2 weeks into the family pressure campaign, things escalated dramatically. I came home from work to find a certified letter waiting for me, not from Henry's lawyer, from a firm I'd never heard of, Peterson, Clark, and Associates. Notice of intent to contest will, estate of Henry Thompson. My heart started pounding as I read the legal jargon. Linda had actually hired lawyers to try to take my inheritance. They were claiming Henry was mentally incompetent when he wrote the will, that I had exerted undue influence over him, and that the will should be declared invalid. It was all nonsense, but it was also terrifying. I had no idea how these things worked or what it meant for me. I called Mr. Lee immediately. Alex, I was expecting this call, he said calmly. Your mother's attorneys contacted us this morning with their intent to contest. Can they do that? Can they actually take the money? They can try, but your grandfather anticipated this exact scenario. That's why he was so thorough with the documentation. What kind of documentation? Video recording of him signing the will with 2 witnesses present. Medical records from his doctor confirming his mental competency just weeks before his death. Detailed notes about his reasoning for the inheritance distribution. And, Mr. Lee paused, he hired a private investigator to document any harassment or coercion attempts against you. He what? Your grandfather was a very smart man, Alex. He knew exactly what kind of person your mother was. He's been planning for this for over 2 years. We scheduled a meeting for that evening. When I got to Mr. Lee's office, he had several thick files spread across his desk. Let me show you what your grandfather left for this situation. First, he showed me the video of Henry signing his will. It was filmed in Mr. Lee's office about 6 months before Henry died. Henry looked completely lucid, answered questions clearly, and specifically stated that he was leaving everything to me because I was the only one who never asked for anything and understood the value of work. Then came the medical records. Henry had gotten a full cognitive evaluation just 8 weeks before he died. The results showed he was completely mentally competent with no signs of dementia or impairment. But here's the really interesting part, Mr. Lee said, pulling out another folder. Your grandfather hired Lisa Carter, a private investigator, to monitor your family's behavior after his death. He handed me a business card. Lisa Carter, private investigator, former police detective. She's been documenting everything, the phone calls, the workplace incident, the social media posts, all of it. How is that even legal? Everything she documented happened in public or was posted on social media, perfectly legal and very useful for our case. Mr. Lee pulled out Henry's letter to me, which I hadn't read yet. Alex, if you're reading this, it means Linda is being exactly as greedy as I expected. Don't let her guilt you. That woman never cared about me when I was alive, and she doesn't deserve my money when I'm dead. You're the only one who ever treated me like family instead of an ATM. Use this money to build something good with your life. Don't let the vultures tear you apart. I've given you all the tools you need to fight them, Henry. I almost laughed despite the stress. That sounded exactly like something Henry would say. There's more, Mr. Lee continued. Your grandfather included a specific clause in his will. If anyone contests it, they forfeit any future claim to the estate permanently. And if their contest is found to be frivolous, they're responsible for all legal fees, both sides. What does that mean? It means if your mother loses this challenge, which she will, she'll owe not only her own legal fees, but ours as well. Could easily be $30,000 or more. The next morning, I got a call from Linda. Her voice was different, harder, less fake sweet. Alex, we need to meet face to face, just family, no lawyers, we can work this out like adults. There's nothing to work out, Mom. Please, I'm asking nicely, Sunday dinner, come alone this time, bring your appetite and an open mind. Something in her tone made me suspicious. This felt like another setup. Fine, I said, but I'm bringing someone. Who? You'll see. I called Lisa Carter immediately after hanging up. Sunday arrived, and I drove to Linda's house with Lisa Carter in my passenger seat. She was exactly what you'd expect from an ex-cop turned private investigator. Tough-looking woman in her 50s, no-nonsense attitude, observant eyes that missed nothing. Remember, she told me as we parked, they're going to try to pressure you into signing something. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and let me handle the legal talk. Linda opened the door with her practiced smile, but it flickered when she saw Lisa. Alex, so good to see you, honey, and who's your friend? This is Lisa Carter, she's here to observe our family conversation. Observe what exactly? Whatever happens in this conversation. Linda's smile got strained. Well, come in then. The dining room was set up like a business meeting. Linda, Mark, Emily, and Uncle David were seated around the table. At the head sat two men in expensive suits I didn't recognize, legal pads and documents spread across the table. Alex, please have a seat, Linda said, gesturing to a chair positioned directly across from everyone else. I sat down. Lisa remained standing behind me with her arms crossed. Mark cleared his throat like he was running a board meeting. Alex, we've brought in some professionals to help us work through this inheritance situation in a way that's fair to everyone. One of the suits introduced himself as their attorney. He launched into a speech about family harmony and equitable distribution, and how they drafted a new agreement that would resolve everything amicably. We understand Henry put your name on the will, the lawyer continued, but we believe there may have been some confusion about his true intentions. This document would establish a family trust with the inheritance funds distributed fairly among all family members. He slid a thick stack of papers across the table. I didn't even look at them. What's my percentage in this fair distribution? I asked. Linda jumped in quickly. 25%, which is very generous considering you're just one person and we have multiple family members with legitimate needs. 25% of my own inheritance. It's not really yours though, is it? Emily said with attitude. I mean, Grandpa was probably just confused, he barely knew you. That stung, but I kept my voice level. And if I refuse to sign this? The lawyer spoke up. Well, we'd prefer to avoid litigation, but we do have grounds to contest the will based on Henry's age and mental state. Possible undue influence. Undue influence from me? Linda's mask was slipping. Alex, stop being difficult, this is about family unity. Henry never cared about family unity, but we do. We're trying to fix his mistake. His mistake was leaving me money? His mistake, Linda said, her voice getting sharper, was leaving everything to someone who doesn't understand family obligations. You work on trucks, Alex, what do you know about managing this kind of money? We could invest it properly, use it responsibly for things that matter. Like Emily's sorority parties and your kitchen renovation? Linda's face flushed red. How dare you? We raised you, we gave you a home, we supported you. And this is how you repay us. That's when I started laughing, not a happy laugh, the kind you make when something is so ridiculous you can't believe it's happening. You raised me? You kicked me out at 18 and told me to figure out my own life. You gave me a home? You made me sleep in the basement while Emily got the master bedroom with her own bathroom. You supported me? You've never supported anything I've done. I stood up and pulled out my phone. Lisa, you getting all this? Lisa smiled grimly, every word. The color drained from Linda's face. Getting what? Everything, the coercion, the emotional manipulation, the threats, the harassment campaign. See, Henry knew you'd try exactly this, so he hired Lisa here to document it all. I turned to their lawyer. Did my mom tell you about showing up at my workplace, the social media harassment, the coordinated family pressure campaign? Because that's all documented evidence of coercion. The lawyer looked very uncomfortable. We weren't made aware of any harassment allegations. Well, now you are, and here's the thing about Henry's will, it has a very specific clause. Anyone who contests it loses any future claim to the estate permanently. And if the contest is found to be frivolous, which this definitely is, they owe all legal fees for both sides. I picked up their unsigned agreement and looked at it for the first time, then I slowly tore it in half. So please, by all means, take me to court. I'd love to watch you explain to a judge why you think you deserve money from a man you couldn't be bothered to visit when he was dying. Linda was shaking now. This isn't fair, that money should be shared, we're family. No, I said, walking toward the door, you're people who happen to share some DNA with me. Family would have been happy that Henry thought enough of me to leave me his life's work. Family would have supported me instead of trying to steal from me. As I reached the door, I turned back. Oh, and Linda, if you or anyone else in this room contacts me about this inheritance again, Lisa will be filing criminal harassment charges. Enjoy your lawsuit. I hear legal fees are really expensive these days. I walked out feeling lighter than I had in weeks. 6 months later, my life had completely transformed. The legal challenge went exactly as Mr. Lee predicted. Linda's lawyers dropped the case after reviewing all of Lisa's documentation and Henry's evidence. Not only did they lose, but the judge ruled their contest was frivolous and made them pay all legal fees. Linda got stuck with a $42,000 bill. But that was just the beginning of her problems. Mark got fired from his insurance job in spectacular fashion. Turns out he'd been inflating claims and pocketing the difference for years. His company not only fired him but pressed criminal charges. He lost his license, his reputation, and faced potential jail time. Without Mark's income, Linda's house of cards collapsed immediately. The McMansion was mortgaged to the hilt, Emily's BMW had 2 years of payments left, credit cards were maxed out from years of living beyond their means. The foreclosure notice went up 3 months after Mark lost his job. Emily had to drop out of her expensive college and transfer to community college. The BMW got repossessed, they moved into a small apartment in the bad part of town. Uncle David's contracting business went under because he'd been counting on family money to keep it afloat. He filed for bankruptcy and moved back in with his elderly mother. And me, I was thriving. I'd taken Henry's advice and invested wisely. Most of the money went into index funds and real estate investments. I bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, nothing flashy, but comfortable and completely paid off. I got myself a new truck and started a side business restoring classic cars. My life was genuinely good for the first time ever. Then karma decided to really show off. I'd started dating Sarah, a wonderful woman who worked at the local bank. We took trips together, enjoyed nice dinners, lived comfortably without worrying about money. I also started a scholarship fund in Henry's name for kids who wanted to learn trades. The application required an essay about overcoming adversity and understanding the value of hard work. It felt like something Henry would have approved of. Then Linda started showing up again. At first, it was just seeing her around town, at the grocery store, the gas station, always looking stressed and tired. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. Her hair was different, cheaper style, no more expensive highlights. She was working at a department store, which must have killed her pride. She'd see me and look away quickly, pretending she hadn't noticed me. But I knew it was only a matter of time before desperation won out over pride. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening. "Alex, please, we need to talk." Her voice was completely different, smaller, desperate, nothing like the entitled woman who demanded my inheritance 6 months earlier. "I thought we were done talking, Mom. Please, can we meet for coffee just once? I'm begging you." Against my better judgment, or maybe because I was curious to see how low she'd fallen, I agreed to meet her at a small coffee shop downtown. She looked terrible, older, stressed, wearing clothes from Walmart instead of her usual designer brands. She'd aged 5 years in 6 months. "Alex, I made mistakes, big mistakes, I'm sorry." I sipped my coffee and waited. "Mark and I are getting divorced. Did you know that the house is gone? Emily's barely scraping by in school. I'm working retail for $12 an hour trying to make ends meet. Still nothing from me. I know I was wrong about the inheritance. I know Henry meant for you to have it. I was just scared and greedy and stupid, but mostly scared." She started crying, real tears, not the manipulative kind. "I'm 3 months behind on rent, my car is about to be repossessed. I don't know where we're going to live, Emily's talking about dropping out of school completely." I let her cry for a minute. "Then what do you want from me, Linda?" "I'm not asking for much, just enough to get back on my feet, maybe help with Emily's school. I know I don't deserve it, but we're family, blood family, that has to count for something." She reached across the table like she was going to grab my hand. "I know you have a good heart, Alex. I know you don't want to see your family homeless." I pulled my hand back and leaned forward. "You're right about one thing, Linda, you don't deserve it. Alex, please. You had 28 years to treat me like family, you chose not to. You had months to handle Henry's death with dignity and respect, you chose not to. You chose to try to steal from me, harass me, manipulate me, and drag me through court. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You're a gold digger who thought you hit the jackpot with Mark. When that didn't work out, you tried to steal my inheritance. Now that you're broke, you want to play the family card." I stood up and threw a 5 on the table for my coffee. "Here's what's going to happen, you're going to leave me alone forever. You're going to tell Emily and David and everyone else to leave me alone. You're going to take your retail job and your small apartment and figure out your own life. Because I'm done being your backup plan. Linda was sobbing now. Please, Alex, I'm begging you, I'll do anything. I'll get on my knees right here if you want, I need help. Anything? Perfect, here's what you can do. I leaned down so only she could hear me. You can remember this moment every time you're struggling to pay bills. You can remember that you had a son who inherited over $1 million. And instead of being happy for him, you tried to steal it. You can remember that your greed and entitlement cost you the only person in this family who actually made something of himself. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Linda, Henry left something specifically for you. I pulled an envelope from my jacket, one Mr. Lee had given me months ago with instructions to give it to Linda if she ever came begging. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single dollar bill and a note in Henry's handwriting. Linda, this is exactly what you deserve from me, not a penny more. Maybe now you'll understand what earning means, Henry. I left her crying in that coffee shop and never looked back. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell for more real-life stories of /.